Welcome back to This Week in Privacy, our weekly series where we cover the latest updates with what we're working on within the Privacy Guides community and this week's top stories in the data privacy and cybersecurity space. Privacy Guides is a nonprofit which researches and shares privacy related information and facilitates a community on our forum and matrix where people can ask questions, get advice about staying private online, and preserving their digital rights. Before we dive into this week's show, here's a rundown of how the show is laid out. We'll start by covering site updates. Then we will discuss the top stories in data privacy and cybersecurity. Next, we'll explore some trending posts on the Privacy Guides forum. And finally, we will answer questions from viewers. So if you have a question for us, please leave a comment either on the forum thread over at discuss.privacyguides.net or in the YouTube live chat. I am Nathan, and I am joined today by Jordan. Hello, Jordan.
Hey, how's it going? I'm excited to be here this week.
Excited to be co-hosting with you. I think we've co-hosted once together so far, right?
Yes, a couple of weeks back, but yeah, so just to let everyone know, this is kind of a last minute swap in here. Jonah had some technical issues, so we'll be trying our best this week, but just letting you know ahead of time.
Yeah, no worries. All right, we're gonna go ahead and kick things off with the site updates. It's been a little bit of a quieter week. We got a lot of stuff cooking behind the scenes, but to start with, we do have a new video out for members. We have released the first we've been talking about doing this smartphone security course. There's technically four videos. There's an intro, and then there's like beginner, intermediate, and advanced. The intro and the beginner are now out for members. So the intro is real short. I think it's less than 2 minutes. So I would say the first of three videos is out, but it's technically the first two of four. So if you are a member over on the Privacy Guides forum, or I believe even here on YouTube, you could go ahead and check that out already. And we've got another video in the works that I actually sent off to Jordan yesterday, I believe, that is ready for the next phase of editing. So that is shot and that is edited. We're doing some or I'm trying some interesting things with like moving around and just I'm excited for you guys to see it. I think obviously Jordan does amazing work on the editing and I think it's really going to be exciting. So definitely let us know what you guys think about that when it comes out. And we do have one change to the forum, and we wanted to let you guys know about it. We have added experience levels. So when you join the forum now, we will prompt you to go ahead and enter. This is totally self-reported. What do you think your experience level is? And it's a beginner, intermediate, and advanced. And it'll add a little tag to your profile. Actually, if you look at the announcement, I don't know if we can put that on screen or not, but it is right there on the forum. Jonah has a screenshot where he shows an example of what it'll look like on your profile, and there seems to be some confusion about this. So we're going to go ahead and talk about it real quick. This is again, this is entirely self-reported, and it's designed to make the forum a little bit more um, how would I describe it? I guess user friendly, not really user friendly, but basically what it is it's designed for if you are more of a beginner, then when you ask a question, it'll automatically add a tag that says ELI 5, which is explained like I'm 5, and it basically lets other people know not to withhold anything. Jonah actually specifically says that in the announcement here. Like, we don't expect you to withhold information for it being too difficult, but just to kind of explain it in simpler terms and to be patient with the person asking the question because they may not necessarily know all the same things. They may be kind of new to this privacy stuff. And it does not change the experience at all for anyone else. If you're an advanced user or an intermediate user, you can still add that tag if it's a concept that you're not really familiar with and you want that kind of explanation. There's no like sections of the forum that are not available to beginners or vice versa or anything like that. So just to be clear, and again, it's self-reported. So, it's kind of up to you. Do you feel like an expert, or expert is the wrong word? Do you feel like a more advanced user? Do you feel like an intermediate user? And I believe you can actually change it too at a later date. So maybe after a little while, you're like, yeah, I feel like I'm getting the hang of this. You can bump it up to intermediate. So yeah, hopefully that is something that will make the site a little bit more welcoming for uh, people who are maybe just getting started in the privacy journey. Because I I have seen from a lot of other people, it can be really overwhelming when you first join. And the goal is to try and make it a little bit easier to navigate for people who are new to Privacy Guides forums. So, and Sorry, I'm navigating back to my notes here. Unless Jordan has anything to add, I think we'll start getting into the news. You got anything I missed, or?
No, great overview on everything. I guess we can dive in straight into this first story here. And it's a write up from Kevin. So he's our community and news intern, and it's about an Atlanta activist being charged for wiping their phone before CBP search. So just reading from Kevin's summary here. So let me just Samuel Tunick, a Atlanta-based activist, was arrested and charged with destroying evidence after a U.S. Customs and Border Protection unit searched his Google Pixel smartphone, 404 Media reports. The search was conducted by the Tactical Terrorism Response Team, an elite unit of the CBP, on January 25, 2025. Tunick supposedly erased the data of his Pixel smartphone before the CBP officer searched his device. Although the circumstances of his arrest was unclear, an official indictment states that Tunick allegedly did knowingly destroy, damage, waste, dispose of, and otherwise take any action to delete the digital contents of a Google Pixel cellular phone. There is no evidence that Tunick committed any crimes beyond this charge. As of today, Tunick has been released and is awaiting further trial proceedings. He's not allowed to leave the Northern District of Georgia in the meantime. Privacy guides cannot confirm if the device had Graphene OS or a similar operating system installed. Graphene OS is exclusively to Pixel devices, providing features such as Duress Pin that allows users to quickly wipe data off their phone in high-risk situations. And as you might know, evidence tampering is a crime in most countries. If you're caught erasing data prior to a law enforcement search, you may experience similar charges faced by Tunick. Nonetheless, journalists and activists alike may feel unnerved by this recent development. So I feel like this is kind of a unprecedented thing, I suppose. I was under the I'm completely like I'm not super into like how US law enforcement works, but I was under the impression that you would get this sort of arrested if you wiped the device after they collected it or while they're in the process of collecting it. But am I understanding correctly that this happened before the border patrol people collected the device?
I believe so. So it's really hard to know for sure, but yeah, according to 404 Media here, it says that he wiped the device before they were able to search it, and I believe it was before he was arrested or anything. And yeah, it's uh, this is a really confusing, not confusing story. So I have a friend who is a lawyer and is very passionate about this kind of stuff. And she sent me like 8 pages of thoughts about this and about phones.
Wow.
And this is specific to the US. Yeah. To be fair, a lot of those pages were a paper she wrote in college, that she shared with me, that was basically about the state of cell phone search rights here in the US. And it's very it's very it's a very unclear area. So within 100 miles of the US border, and that does include the ocean, uh, Customs and Border Patrol has jurisdiction and they can choose to search your phone. And there's a very everyone this I should also mention, this includes any port of entry. So that's why this would have happened in Atlanta. Atlanta is not within that 100-mile zone, but because they have the busiest airport that is an international airport in the US, Customs and Border Patrol would have some jurisdiction there. So it's a little unclear why they wanted to search his phone, but he wiped his phone. And like you said, we don't know if it had graphene on it, although it would suggest that he did, because graphene does have that feature. But it could have been, I think Calix has that feature too. And the article simply says that he put in a code and wiped his device. So I don't, it could have been any number of things, but it could have been a third party app that did it automatically on a stock Pixel. So we can't say for sure. but what for one reason or another, he wiped the phone, and now they're basically trying to charge him with destruction of evidence. And um, this is where the gray area is the Supreme Court has really actually, let me go ahead and open one of the documents that she sent me. Um, because the Supreme Court has really declined to weigh in on this. So, like, when does your phone become evidence that you can be charged for destroying? Can
Mm.
you protect your data before they physically take it? What's the legal difference between wiping and refusing to unlock? The only case that we really have that like clearly says anything about cell phone privacy is Riley v. California. And what happened is this dude was pulled over because his car registration or his tags, his license plate basically was expired. And then when they pulled him over, they found out that his license was also suspended. So the standard practice is to impound the car and search the car. And then when they searched the car, they found hidden guns. So obviously that escalated the situation. And
Mm.
um, just to clarify, when they search the car, when they impound it, it's just to make an inventory. Like, here's everything we found in the car, you'll get it back. When they found the guns, that changed the math. So now they arrested him for, I believe, possessing guns he wasn't supposed to have, or maybe he didn't disclose them. But sorry, there's a lot of context that goes into this. When they arrested him, when cops arrest somebody, they are allowed to do a basic search of that person and the immediate area for the officer's safety. So the idea is they want to make sure that you don't have a knife or you're hiding a gun under the seat, which he kind of was, that you're going to try to attack the cop with. And when they arrested him and they did that basic search, they also searched his phone. And that's what this case, this Riley v. California, he said they had no business searching my phone because that did not present a risk to the police. And I believe, if I remember correctly, he won that. So the Supreme Court did say you need a warrant to search a phone in that case. But I mentioned this 100-mile border zone where Border Patrol has jurisdiction. They don't need a warrant to do a routine search. And the Supreme Court has refused to say, what does a routine search look like? We know what it doesn't look like. If they hook it up to Celebrite or anything like that, that counts as a more advanced search, and they do need a warrant for that
Mm.
if you're a US citizen. I'm not sure about if you're not a citizen. Um, but, a routine like hand me your phone, as long as they're not plugging it into anything, that might be a routine search, that might not. So cell phones exist in this really gray area where we have conflicting court rulings where some courts say you need a warrant, some courts say you don't, some courts say you need it in this situation, some courts say you don't. And it's really unfortunate because the Supreme Court has continually refused to lay down a legal precedent on this. According to my friend, they declined 3 cases in 2021. The Fifth Circuit declined a case in 2023. So her speculation is that the court is kind of trying to figure out what the public consensus is, and that's really what they want to base their ruling on. And right now, they can't kind of figure out where the public opinion is on this matter, and that's why they don't really want to put down a ruling yet. So, um, not to get too much into like analysis or anything, but one thing she said is in her opinion, that's why we need to build consensus. We don't want to wait for them to make that ruling based on scattered litigation, kind of quoting her a little bit here. But the idea is that we want to try and form public opinion so that they rule in the favor of like, no, you need a warrant to search a phone. But yeah, that's kind of the all the background of this. So it's unfortunately there's like really no, like, legally speaking, we can't really say for sure what exactly, there's no precedent here, there's no laws, everything is purposely vague and blurry. And yeah, it sounds like the article goes on to say Tunick has been released and is awaiting further trial. He's not allowed to leave the state of the Northern District. I think you may have mentioned that.
Mm.
So yeah, it is something to be aware of. I realize that a lot of people or some people may have really sensitive things on their phones. Like, I believe one story I read, I can't remember where, but it talked about an immigration attorney who had his phone searched, like plugged in and searched the advanced search, and he had to go through like multiple court cases. But at that point, the damage is kind of done, right? And that's supposed to be like confidential information, client attorney and stuff like that. But it's tricky because we now see this, and I've thought about this for a long time, is like, if you delete that phone, if you wipe it, could the cops charge you with obstruction of justice or, tampering with evidence or anything like that? And again, according to my friend, there's really no clear like, oh, well, he wasn't arrested yet, so it's not technically evidence yet. And there's also a lot of um what's the word I'm looking for? the gosh, I just lost my train of thought. I'm so sorry. um, yeah, there's somebody was making the point about there's kind of the law weirdly does and doesn't, from what I can tell, put a lot of emphasis on motive. So like if he had a script that every single day reset his phone, it would be really easy for him to be like, no, they just happened to grab my phone right before that script ran or whatever. But you know, if he manually triggered it, it becomes a much trickier gray area, I think. So yeah.
Yeah, I think the write-up from Kevin, like he suggests like if you're a US citizen or resident, the best bet is not actually to wipe your device. If you expect an imminent search or arrest, um something that you could think about is make sure your device is fully patched and setting a strong password or passphrase on the device instead, which would make it a lot more resistant to forensics tools like Celebrite. But I think in a lot of cases when we see these cases, it's like a case that goes on for like, you know, a year, 2 years, more. Like it's a long time to have a device in isolation. And I think by the time, you know, they actually need to extract the information from the device, it might already be, there might be exploits available for Celebrite to access the information. So it's a bit of a problem. Um, but I think, yeah, I think in this case, I heard there was actual like video evidence of him actually wiping the device. That's why this has been a concern, I think. So I mean, I don't know how someone could prove that you've wiped your device. I mean, that's another whole thing, right? Like, I guess there might be some metadata on the device that could potentially notify law enforcement that it's been wiped recently. But yeah, before first unlock state is the most secure state you can have your device in. So if you keep your device in that state when it's taken by the police, then that will give you the most security.
Yeah, just to back that up, I think for most people that is probably your best bet. I like I said, there are definitely some people who have really sensitive stuff on your phone where it's worth it just to go ahead and wipe it and roll the legal dice like that. But I think for the vast majority of people, what would be better is to just restart your phone. And well, there's two things specifically. Number one, be mindful what data is on your phone, right? This is a really and I know I think we're planning to talk a little bit more about digital minimalism in the future in like a future video, but um, there is a strong argument here for the idea of digital minimalism of try to keep things off your phone if you don't actually need them, and sometimes you do, but sometimes things like email or banking apps or you know setting up the disappearing messages in apps like Signal or Session. Um, you know, or Simplex also has those too. Setting those disappearing messages so that way, even if the phone is taken and unlocked, there's very little data on it. It's kind of a harm reduction attitude. But also, yeah, for those who don't know, when you restart your phone before you unlock it for the first time, that is called before unlocked first state or before unlock state. And that is basically the most secure your phone can possibly be. Because once you unlock it, your phone starts to store things in the temporary memory and it becomes a little bit easier to compromise. I'll admit I don't really know the technical details of that, but it's yeah. So for most people, your best bet is probably just going to be to go ahead and reboot your phone before handing it over. And like Jordan was saying, as long as it's like up to date and it's the most recent um, operating system, that's usually going to be uh, that's going to provide you a pretty decent amount of protection. I think in a lot of cases. There's also not to go on too long, but there's you know, there's a lot of the apps that we recommend in the privacy community have the option to add an additional layer of like passcode locking or authentication. So like you can lock, I think Proton is one of them. I believe Signal is one of them. Molly's one of them. Things like that that you can add that additional lock where even if the phone itself is unlocked, the app itself may not necessarily be unlocked. I don't know how well that works against forensic tools, but it could slow down people a little bit. And then just one last thing to kind of alert people to is biometric unlock is kind of a pro and a con. Face unlock is not usually something we recommend because there have been stories about people like pointing the phone at you and unlocking it. But things like fingerprint unlock, generally speaking, again, phones are a really great legal area, but generally speaking, you cannot be ordered to turn over the password because that is a violation of your Fifth Amendment right against self incrimination and your First Amendment right to free speech here in the US. but you can be ordered to unlock the device. So, yeah, things like fingerprint may not be, they may provide a little bit of protection. They may provide a good balance between longer passwords and convenience, but also if you're going to a protest, hopefully you're going to harden your phone a little bit more than usual. So, yeah, I don't know. Oh yeah, and real quick, Kevin pointed out in the article here that graphene specifically does have an option to automatically reboot your phone after a certain amount of time of inactivity. So yeah, if you're bringing it to a protest, you could lower it dramatically to like a couple hours. So
Yeah, and I mean, I think in a lot of cases, you should weigh up whether you actually need to take your phone to any event,
mm,
you know, especially if you suspect that there will be police presence or um law enforcement, I guess. Because yeah, you can eliminate the risk entirely. And I think it's important to be mindful and use tools that don't leave trails behind. Especially if it's something sensitive, right? Like journalism or any sort of thing like whistleblowing. Yeah, it's better to utilize tools that don't open you up to having that data searched in the first place. But yeah, I think that's a pretty good summary of that article there. I think we're pretty good to move on to the next one here.
alrighty. So our next article, we're gonna head all the way on the other side of the world and talk about Australia, where this world first teen social media ban that we've been discussing for quite some time has now taken effect. So I believe that took effect on the 10th, if I remember correctly. So that's 2 days ago at the time of this recording. And for those who are just joining us, basically, Australia has banned children from under 16 from holding social media accounts. And yeah, I do. So the article we cited here is the Register, but I mean, you can find this being talked about in any number of news outlets. And I know it's probably not editorially or great for editorial reasons for them to be injecting their own bias, but I do really appreciate their cynical take on this, which actually does kind of reflect, experts have been saying this isn't really going to do anything. And the prime minister also said that too. He said, from the beginning, we've acknowledged this process won't be 100% perfect, but he compares it to underage drinking. He says the fact that teenagers occasionally find a way to have a drink doesn't diminish the value of having a clear national standard. Um, so, yeah, I mean, that's kind of the nuts and bolts of the story as far as the actual facts go, is if you're under 16, you can't have a social media account in Australia anymore. I don't think the accounts are getting deleted. Um, I could be wrong about that part. I
Yeah,
don't know
so
if you know.
that's definitely a good question, right? I think it's we should probably like set some work some pre information here. But it's basically it's the way that this ban works is that it will deactivate those accounts and the information will be deleted.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Oh,
people
okay.
are losing their accounts. It depends on the platform what
Hmm.
they decide to do in particular. But like we've already seen people that have their account. I mean, the main issue that I've seen with this is that the social media platforms that have asked for people's date of birth, a lot of kids have already lied and said they're like 42. So I mean, it's not coming up and saying, "Oh, you're underage, you can't use this." Like I think that the government is kind of a bit confused about what children do. They don't usually tell the truth. They're gonna get on platforms before they really should. That's just how it works. It's just how children are. So I mean, it's not really a surprise that this isn't working too well, I guess. I think there's at least currently I've seen a couple of articles from like the ABC, that's like the national Australian
Mm.
national like news agency.
Australian Broadcasting Company or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. And it's like the state media, I guess. And they've been kind of talking to children and talking to parents and things. And there's quite a lot of instances, at least currently, of people who are under 16 having multiple accounts on the same device. Some of their accounts not being banned, some of them are being banned because the age is correct. So
That's funny.
it's not working that great. I also saw some comments because the way that this law works is they're not allowed to. I believe they're not allowed to actually ask for your ID. They have to use like age assurance techniques. So they're using like facial recognition, age facial recognition, which is like you point the device at your face and it guesses your age, which I think is a little bit of a problem, right? Like, what if someone who's like 18 looks younger than they are, and then now their account gets banned? Like, that
Mhm.
doesn't really make that much sense to me. And there's also people who just point their device at other people. So, I mean, I'm not sure that that is really that great at stopping this. The only way that I see it actually being effective is if they introduce some sort of digital ID system, or they actually force people to upload their ID documents, like everyone to upload their ID documents. So, um, the thing that I've noticed though is that a lot of people who are adults haven't really had any effect on their accounts yet. So, it seems like
Mhm.
they might be going for the most obvious accounts first, that have put the correct birth date and stuff, and disabling those. I think according to the government, they said they shut down like 300,000 children's accounts on Snapchat or something. So it's definitely working for people who are under 16. Their accounts where they have put their real date of birth are being disabled. So yeah, I don't think this is we've talked about this a bit, but I think when you restrict children's ability to access information, it becomes a little bit of an issue. It's also kind of confusing which platforms they're banning, like Pinterest and Discord. I don't know about Discord, but I don't know if any of you have been on Discord, but there's a lot of stuff that's bad on there, and I believe even the app on the App Store is rated R18. So it's very confusing. It doesn't make much sense why they're choosing certain apps over others. I think in a lot of cases we'll just see a lot of people flocking to different apps instead, possibly even shadier apps using VPNs to bypass this. And I think in a lot of cases I've seen there's people who use this for like niche interests. They use social media to interact with other people who have niche interests, people who are like, marginalized, like queer people. It's a bit of a problem that we're restricting the access of children to the internet, basically. I do think they have a right to access the internet, and there needs to be better systems to do this, right? Like, we already have on device like parental controls. Like, Apple has some of the best in the world. You can set that up straight on people's
Mhm.
devices. It limits what people can access. I think when we start like adding blanket bans to platforms, it becomes more of an issue. So I'm not really I think a lot of people are very much not a fan of this in Australia, and I don't think people are gonna like Albo very much for too much longer, because of this. I don't think it's gonna be very good.
Yeah, you really hit the nail on the head with everything. A lot of the stuff you said actually is here in this article. Let's see. Reports have noted a sudden sign up and a spike for apps like Lemonade and Yope that currently aren't covered by the ban. That surge has made prophecy out of warnings that banning social media will just see kids shift to services operated by outfits even less interested in child safety than the likes of Meta and Google. Hard to believe there's companies that care less than Meta about child safety, but apparently there are. Um, they also said that the law I believe said they have to take like quote unquote reasonable measures or something. So basically companies have to figure out on their own how they're going to verify users, which means a lot of them are outsourcing it. Which ironically the article points out here, some have decided to work with age verification companies based outside of Australia. So now you're putting people at risk with companies that aren't even in the country. The article says these companies may request a photo of government ID or a selfie. So I guess some of them may actually require ID, but yeah, some of them may take selfie. And like you said, when I was in college, I sat behind a girl in my English class that I swear looked like 20, 19, 20, 21, and she was like 42 or something like that. And she just looked amazing. And I'm sure when she was 20, she probably looked like she was 16. So, this like determining a person's age isn't always accurate just based off the photo alone. And then yeah, again, like you said, some people are using makeup, masks, lying about their ages. I know in the UK with their Online Safety Act, we saw people uploading video game characters, all kinds of crazy stuff, VPNs, like you said. So yeah, this is very this is very symbolic, I think. And actually, on that note, we did include in the show notes. EFF has launched an age verification hub as a resource against misguided laws. So I think this is a good time to mention that real quick. So the EFF has launched this website. First of all, they're doing an AMA, I believe next week. Yeah, December 17th at 5 p.m. Pacific time. And then, or excuse me, 12 p.m. through 5 p.m. Pacific time with EFF attorneys, technologists, and activists answering questions about age verification. Oh, this is going on for 3 days, December 15th through 17th. So you'll have plenty of time to ask your questions. And if you're not a Reddit user or you're unable to make that for any reason, in January, they're going to have a live stream panel discussion. That's January 15th from 12 p.m. Pacific time again. So there's that worth checking out. But they also have an actual hub, EFF.org/age. And this is a really, really simple hub, but it has over on the left side, it says like why join the fight, and it tells you, what's at stake, who is harmed, is this legal, does the tech even work? Which, we were just spent all this time talking about, usually not, and it usually backfires a lot. And yeah, it's I actually like, where did it go? In the original article where they talked about this new hub, EFF, they had a really good line. It says, quote, "We all want young people to be safe online. However, age verification is not the panacea that regulators and corporations claim it to be. In fact, it could undermine the safety of many." So, yeah, it's like you were saying, we've talked about this quite a lot, and it's one of those things where politicians want easy, simple solutions. Everybody does. It's human nature. We want a good guy and a bad guy, and we want very clean, simple, um, all good or all bad. Like it makes for a good movie, but in reality, people don't really like it when there's kind of a gray area and like, oh, this person has redeeming qualities. And so like politicians just want an easy answer that they can point to and say, I did a thing, I made everybody safe, vote for me again next year. And unfortunately, this is not one of those issues that you can just easily do that with. Even I've mentioned in the past, like going after the companies and making social media, like Facebook themselves has pumped out so many studies that say this is bad for mental health just across the board, not even for kids. Doom scrolling. I know I'm kind of rambling or getting on a soapbox a little bit here, but like doom scrolling has become a common term in today's day and age. And honestly, that kind of blows my mind that we all just accepted that as a term. But like that's how bad it is. And that's not limited to kids. We all know what doom scrolling is, even if you don't know it by name. If somebody describes it to you, it's like, oh yeah, I do that sometimes. So like it's crazy that we will do anything other than crack down on these companies and be like, stop intentionally putting people at risk. And it just, there's so many arguments against this. It makes kids unprepared for how to deal with this stuff once they turn old enough to start using social media. And I've mentioned before, I think it takes away from the parents' right to like decide when is right for their kids to join. And it's just, yeah, I don't know. It's at best, it's well-meaning, and I say at best because I know there's a lot of people who don't believe that, and I don't blame you for not believing that. I'm not saying I believe it entirely, but at best, this is well-meaning, but it's an oversimplified. Um, let's somebody I forget who it was. It may have been EFF. Somebody said it's like taking a machete where you need a scalpel, and I don't know if they were talking about age verification, but yeah, it's just one of those things where it's an oversimplified solution, quote unquote solution that yeah, we're gonna have to keep an eye on because that's ugh. Yeah,
Yeah, I think
so
there's
that's the thing now.
we've made a lot of like points towards why this is bad. Someone said here, if you're under 16, you're probably unable to watch this live stream. Actually, you
Yeah,
could still watch the live stream. You just wouldn't be able to be logged in. So that's another thing that doesn't make sense about this. This whole thing is it doesn't affect being logged out. So what, people are just going to start watching YouTube videos logged out. People are going to start watching things through front ends and all these other things. I think stopping people from posting as well is kind of, it's I heard someone say it's like you're silencing an entire generation basically because they can't comment on anything, they can't express their thoughts, they can't do anything. So I
mm,
think that is another important thing about this, is that there's people that are, being silenced, and their voices need to be heard as well in this. And it's not like these are people that can vote. These are not people like that are of that age, but their thoughts on this still matter. So I think we should definitely listen to what they're saying. And in a lot of cases, it sounds like a lot of people, especially under 16, are against this because that's where they find their communities, that's where they access information. So I don't know. I think this is I don't want to use like a commonly used anecdote here, but it does feel a bit like a slippery slope. This could be like
Mhm.
the push towards an actual ban or towards, you know, requiring ID for any platform, for instance. I think it's very problematic, but like Nate said, there's some really good information here on the EFF's website. There was also I'm also following a Fight for the Future one as well. They're also going against
Mhm.
this sort of stuff. So it's worth checking out that. It was a page specifically for Australians as well, and yeah, I think we should definitely try and because I think a lot of people that I've talked to about this, they're actually in favor of it because they don't really understand the repercussions behind something like this. Because it's actually kind of like it's shrouded in language that a lot of people would want to agree with, right? Like, this is to protect children, this is, you know, this sort of stuff. And I think that's important to kind of come out against, if you can, to people in your life, to people that you talk to, because yeah, there's definitely some people who are. Um, there was an interesting post I saw, and it was from one of the MPs in Australia, and he spelt Snapchat with a capital C. Like, there's no capital C in Snapchat. Like, these people don't even know what social media platforms are, and they're enacting laws to ban them. Like, I think there should be more experts consulted on this than just politicians who don't really understand technology. They don't understand the repercussions of this sort of ban. But I'm sure they did the calculations and they found that this was a positive this would be received positively by the public, so that's why they went ahead with it. But yeah, it's kind of all I have to say about that one.
Yeah, the slippery slope argument is like it's really tough because sometimes it makes you sound kind of paranoid and sometimes it doesn't come to true, you know, or it come to pass. It's one of those things where it, everybody always makes that argument on both sides of an issue, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm with you. I think it is a slippery slope. I think it puts it puts power in the hands of the government to be able to say like this requires age gating, but this doesn't. And then they can update that list at any time to say, well, now this thing is not safe for children. And you made a really good point that again, this is a little bit conspiratorial, but the government, any government, will usually dress things up in a way that makes it very hard to argue with them. You know, it's, "Oh, this is for the safety of the children." So then when you come in and you're like, "I don't think this is a good idea," the default response is, "Oh, so you hate kids?" And it's designed to, like, paint you in that negative light when you go against the grain like that. And it's kinda nefarious, but it's really intentional. They know what they're doing. But yeah, the last thing I wanna touch on is, what you said there about they don't even really know, how a lot of this stuff works. And I don't know about Australian politics, but in the US, that's certainly how it works. Is a lot of the time somebody will come in and say, "We think there's a problem. Here's our solution. Here's this bill." And a lot of the time, the politician, because you know, to their defense, they're human. Nobody knows everything, right? They probably have no idea about how any of this stuff works, but they're like, "Well, you made a good argument. You've got this bill. It's ready to go. Sure, I'll get behind it." And that's one of the reasons that it's really important to try to get involved politically if you can, is because a lot of the time they may not know any better. Like I really I don't want to let them off the hook too much because I'm very critical of politicians myself. But I think a lot of the time we envision them as like these evil, like you know, like in a movie or a political thriller. They're like purposely just trying to make people suffer, and it's like no, a lot of them really think they're making the world a better place, and they have no idea that this is a genuine risk that has all these knock-on effects, or there's so many easy ways to get around it. And a lot of the time that's simply because there's nobody on the other side of the aisle as citizens. There's nobody on the other side of this issue coming up and saying, "Hey, this is a really bad idea, and here's why I think you shouldn't do this." not to shill it all the time, but I did mention on a previous live stream, Louis Rossmann did a talk for EFF Austin, which, full disclosure, I'm a board member of EFF Austin. But if you look up Louis Rossmann, EFF Austin, he tells the story of that's exactly how he got involved in Right to Repair, because he found out there was a law that was going through, and he went and talked to the politician who was sponsoring the law. I might be getting the finer details wrong, but basically he went and talked to him, and they told him, it's like, well, that other person came in and here's what they told me. And Rossmann was like, what are you talking about? That's not how any of this works. And the guy was like, the politician he was talking to, he's like, son, I'm like 80 years old. I don't know how any of this stuff works. They came in, they made what sounded to me like a coherent argument. I believed them. You're the first person telling me otherwise. And that was the moment. And ultimately, Lewis was able to win him over to his side. But that was the moment that Lewis realized, he's like, a lot of the time, there is simply nobody there telling them why the other side is mistaken in this thing. And is, yeah, it's just the point is, like, if you can, and oh, here's what I was going to say is, like, don't go in there and like attack them and like, you're evil. But if you can get in there and show them like, hey, this is why that person's wrong and this isn't a good idea. I'm not saying it's 100%, but a lot of the time it can make a difference, especially at the local levels. So yeah. All
Definitely
right.
some good points there.
On that note, yeah. Do you have anything to add, or?
No, yeah, we can move on to the next story here. And this
Cool.
one is from Brave. So Brave, this is published on December 10th. AI browsing in Brave Nightly now available for early testing. So this is kind of a surprise, I guess, because Brave browser has kind of built itself as like a privacy and security focused browser. And generally, when we think of AI browsing, we think of insecurity and privacy invasion. So this is certainly an interesting direction for Brave to be putting their resources into. But we've kind of seen a similar thing happening with Firefox. So I'm just going to quote from the article here. Today, we're announcing the availability of Brave's new AI browsing feature in Brave Nightly, our testing and development build channel for early experimentation and user feedback. When ready for general release, this agentic experience aims to turn the browser into a truly smart partner, automating tasks and helping people accomplish more. I feel like that's like the buzzword of like this year, agentic. It's agentic. We added an agentic agent. Oh, however, agentic browsing is also inherently dangerous. Giving an AI control of your browsing experience could expose personal data or allow agentic AI to take unintended actions. Security measures are tricky to get right and disastrous when they fail, as we have shown through numerous vulnerabilities we found and responsibly disclosed over the last few months. Indirect prompt injections are basically where a website can have a prompt on the page that can basically redirect the agentic AI to perform like a malicious attack against someone, are a systemic challenge facing the entire category of AI-powered browsers. For this reason, we've chosen a careful approach to releasing AI browsing in the Brave browser, soliciting input from security researchers. We are offering AI browsing behind an opt-in feature flag in the nightly version of Brave, which is the browser build we use for testing and development. We'll continue to build upon our defenses over time with feedback from the public. At present, these safeguards include AI browsing is currently only in the nightly channel behind an opt-in feature flag via Brave's integrated AI assistant Leo. AI browsing happens only in an isolated browsing profile, keeping your regular browsing data safe, and AI browsing has restrictions and controls built into the browser. AI browsing uses reasoning-based defenses as an additional guardrail against malicious websites. The AI browsing experience has to be manually invoked, ensuring that users retain complete control over their browsing experience, and like all AI features in Brave, AI browsing is completely optional, off by default. So, what are your thoughts, Nate? What are your initial thoughts here?
Yeah. Well, my initial thought kind of goes back to what you said at the very beginning, where you said you're surprised because AI is not typically something we think of in the context of privacy and security. And I agree with you for the record, but I have noticed that Brave is trying to really um, they're trying to have their cake and eat it too, where they want to be a privacy browser, and there's a lot of websites out there that show that they do have actually really good privacy out of the box. And I do believe that they're really innovative, but I also question exactly how private AI can really be, even with all of the stuff they put into it. I don't know. It's interesting for sure. I agree with you. Like agentic AI is definitely the buzzword of the year for sure. And I really appreciate that a common criticism with Brave is it's got all the people call it bloat. It's got the AI stuff, it's got the crypto stuff, it's got all this stuff built in that people don't necessarily want. And I understand. I guess it's one of those things. I think both people have really good points because some people will say like, well, then just don't use it. You don't have to use any of it, which is totally true. Ironically, Brave actually, I found this out recently. Brave Shields has one to disable Brave's own AI summary in Brave Search. So you can use Brave with Brave Search and still disable the AI summary using their own shields, which is pretty cool. You can opt out of all this stuff, but at the same time, I understand the argument of like, oh, but the code is still there and it's kind of adding potential attack surface, and I don't know. In regards to this specifically, I'm not entirely convinced what use agentic browsing has, especially this early in. It's one of those things where I personally wouldn't trust it to do, I don't know, even simple things like, okay, I need a new coffee maker, go compare the top 3 brands or whatever. And it's like, but how do I know those are still the best? How do I know that's not paid advertising? How do I know you didn't summarize something that wasn't there? I don't know if I've shared this story here before, but a long time ago, I was testing out LLMs to see like, oh, let me see if these can improve my workflow in any way. And I was doing a review of Threema, I think. So I told an LLM, I can't even remember which one. I'm like, "Hey, give me the pros and cons of the Messenger Threema." And one of the pros it said was it has a password manager built in. And I was like, "This is news to me." So I asked it, I'm like, "Hey, what's your source for that?" And of course, it couldn't tell me because this was one of those LLMs that doesn't cite its sources. But it went, "Oh, you're right. There is no password manager." And it's like, "What?" Like, there's so many stories out there about like developers don't like using AI because they have to go back and fact check it. It's just twice as much work. And so I don't know, but it could also be one of those things where it gets better over time. And when Proton rolled out their LLM, they made the argument that like AI is not going anywhere and we may as well give people private options, which I feel like maybe is what Brave is going for here is like everybody's trying to jump on the agentic AI bandwagon. So maybe it's best to give them an option that's slightly less crappy than all the other ones. But yeah, I don't know. It's yeah. I will say this. I feel like Brave has been again has done a lot of innovative things in the privacy space, and they have been one of the biggest. I don't know if critic is the right word, but like they said, we have shown through numerous vulnerabilities that we found and responsibly disclosed over the last few months, talking about the agentic browsing and other the security in other agentic browsers. So I feel like I wouldn't expect them to be perfect. I would definitely expect there to be mistakes in this for sure, some of which are just inherently baked into AI itself. But I got to be honest, if I was going to trust anybody with it, I would trust Brave. I'm not saying you should use it. I'm just saying if I had to, I would probably trust them first.
Yeah, they seem like, at least so far, like I am very much in the camp of not really wanting any of these features in my browser. But this definitely seems like the best possible like people to be doing this, and it seems like they've thought about the security aspects. But I guess before we talk about that
Yeah.
a bit more, Sod This All just sent a gift membership in the chat, so thank you very much. And Supreme is 21 just received that, so definitely say thank you to that person. And Jonah also sent 5 Privacy Guides gift memberships in the chat, so if you did get one of those, make sure to say thank you. And we also got another donation from Sod This All for £2. Enjoying the stream, keep up the good work. Thank you so much. That's so appreciated. We're
Yeah.
glad you're
Thank you.
enjoying it so far.
Yeah. Getting back to the article real quick, it does say, they are open source. They say we welcome bug reports and feature requests on GitHub. We encourage anyone who discovers a security issue to report that issue to our bug bounty program. And they say they're actually doubling their usual reward for now on HackerOne. So, um, yeah, it seems like they've at least put some thought into this. They talk about, because I read this article earlier. They said, where was it? It uses reasoning based defenses as an additional guardrail. Maybe they're talking about something else, but further down in the article, they talk about how there's basically like two LLMs working here, and so when you tell Leo to go, compare coffee pots or whatever, Leo goes and gets the answer and then actually double checks with a second LLM and is like, "Hey, here's the answer I came up with." And then that LLM compares the prompt and the answer to kind of determine if it's in the ballpark or if something's really wrong. This is very high level, so they didn't go into like super super detail, but um, and I really appreciate personally in this article they keep saying over and over, like right here, despite its risks, it shows great promise. Um, where is it? Oh no, here we go. While these mitigations help you significantly, users should know that safeguards do not eliminate risks such as prompt injection. Further down, they say, where did it go? Basically they say throughout this article, like, look, nothing is perfect, this has risks, and they're really trying to hammer it home, like, you need to understand this has risks if you're going to use it. And I don't think they ever say they're going to get rid of it. I think it's just something they're acknowledging. But yeah, it's important to be aware of that, which, unlike a lot of other browsers, a lot of other companies are just trying to get the next dollar. They're trying to just roll this out as quick as possible, be first one to market. And it seems like they're trying to make sure that people know the risks, which I personally really appreciate. So,
Yeah, I think it's I'm not in shock. Like I genuinely am wondering with these sort of features. Like we've seen Firefox is also doing a similar thing. Like they're doing like a AI window. I think it's very similar to what Brave is doing. Um and it's, I guess my question would be, who uses this and why would I want to use this? So I prefer personally, like I prefer to like use the browser myself, and would this really be saving me a lot of time? I'm just kind of questioning the need for this, I guess. I definitely am not quite sure is this just because Brave wants to be on the same level as other browsers and also get that market share from people who like AI? I'm not really sure. It certainly isn't particularly appealing to me, but maybe I'm not the target audience for this sort of feature, but I feel like a lot of the extra features in Brave, I literally turn off every single feature that they've added. Like I just don't use anything that they've added. I just want the browser to have a search bar, and yeah, I don't need like a weather widget. I don't need like a news tab. I don't need like a Brave VPN. I don't need like a Leo AI thing. Um, so I don't know. I think if I was going to use Brave again, I would probably disable all of this. But yeah, it's not. I don't entirely understand it myself, but
yeah, I'm with you. I disable all the crypto stuff. I disable the Brave News. I mentioned I disable the AI summaries and Brave Search even. I do I will admit I do use Leo sometimes, but it's mostly for looking up like server errors. I do a lot of self-hosting, and I find it's I've had good luck with that, good success with that. But I'm with you in the sense that I like it to be separated. Like that's why I shut off the AI summaries in search, because I found myself relying on them more than I wanted to. And I realized I was doing it. And I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. I want to go to the actual source. I want to go to the website and get the full context and see if I trust this source or not. And it's one of those things where like if I want the AI, then I want to specifically open a Leo tab and go to that. I don't want it just integrated in that way. So the only thing I could personally think as a real use case for sure is maybe and I could be wrong here, I could be projecting, but like maybe if somebody's like differently abled and it's like, no, it's awesome that I can now send the browser out to, like I said, compare like 6 different coffee pots. And that's easier for me because now I don't have to navigate to every single website. And that's a physical challenge. But I don't know, maybe there are other use cases. But yeah, I don't see myself really using it anytime soon. I might play around with it whenever it comes into stable, but I like I said, I don't trust it to not make mistakes and just make double the work where I have to go back and double check it. So I don't know how much how much I'm going to end up using it.
Yeah, no, that's actually a really good point about like the differently abled people. I guess like I don't think about that because I'm in a position where that doesn't affect me, but that is a really good point actually. I do think that is kind of an important thing that should be available, but also like yeah, I'm not sure if yeah, that might be tricky because I'm not sure what sort of it is going to be sending basically everything to an AI server, so that could also be a privacy risk for those people too. I think I would hope that this sort of feature could work on device, but it's pretty unlikely, right? It's a lot of processing power to like analyze screens and like uh do that sort of stuff. So it seems like that probably might not be the case. It's probably being offloaded to OpenAI or Gemini or some other third-party AI company. So it's kind of unfortunate that there isn't really anyone who's taking a privacy first approach. Even Proton, they've got their AI thing, but it's not a local model or
Mhm.
anything. It's running on their servers,
Yeah.
and it really is just a pinky promise at that point. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not really the biggest fan of these features, but I think that the Brave team has done at least the due diligence to try and make it not complete crap like a lot of these AI companies, like OpenAI or I don't really know all the other ones. But yeah, it's interesting to see this.
Comet, whoever that one's from. Yeah.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, Claude. Yeah, can't remember all of them off the top of my head, but yeah, um,
Yeah.
it's definitely interesting to see.
Agreed. All right. On that note, we're going to go back to some political stuff and we're going to talk about the US planning to scrutinize foreign tourist social media history. And actually, I've seen this article kind of make the rounds, and I think they kind of buried the lead on this one because that is alarming, but it's not just that. So, yeah. So I'm going to kind of start towards the beginning of this article here. This comes from The Guardian, and they say the mandatory new disclosures would apply to the 42 countries whose nationals are currently permitted to enter the US without a visa, such as longtime US allies Britain, France, Australia, Germany, and Japan. So, in a notice published on Tuesday, Customs and Border Patrol said that it would require any telephone numbers used by visitors over the same period, any email addresses used in the last decade. They would really love me if I had to do this, as well as face, fingerprint, DNA, and iris biometrics. So that's why I said I feel like a lot of people are burying the lead because I haven't heard anybody mention that in like any newspapers yet, or any news outlets. Or I think one. I think Privacy International mentioned that in their headline, but
That's wild.
yeah, yeah, I know. DNA, fingerprint, biometrics, which I mean, you can make the argument that fingerprint and stuff like that, or face at least, you kind of give when you go through the airport anyways, because a lot of them use facial recognition nowadays, which you can opt out of as an American citizen. Uh, TSA will get a little bit short with you sometimes if you do it, and they'll make you stand in the long line. But other than that, I haven't had any issues. Um, but DNA, I think, is a new one. I can't remember that one. The article goes on to say it would also ask for the names, addresses, birth dates, and birthplaces of family members, including children. So now your loved ones are being put at risk just because you wanted to come visit. So, yeah, this goes back to an executive order that Trump signed on the first day of office. Here on the second term, it says that it calls for restrictions to ensure visitors to the U.S., quote, do not bear hostile attitudes towards its citizens, culture, government institutions, or founding principles. And then the article just kind of goes on to talk about how the US is supposed to host the World Cup this year. We're co hosting it with Canada and Mexico. So there are concerns that this might cause like a dip in visitors for the US part of that. Um, FIFA said they were expecting more than 5 million fans across the whole thing. And they say that the US has already seen a dramatic drop in tourism on Trump's second term. So yeah, there's just kind of a lot of statistics here. You know, California tourism authorities are predicting a 9% decline in foreign visits to the state. Hollywood Boulevard reports a 50% fall in foot traffic. Las Vegas has seen a rapid decline in visits. Canadian residents who made a return trip to the US by car dropped almost 37% in July. Air travel from Canada, 25%. So, anyways, yeah, point being, like, it goes on to say, like, tourism's already kind of low, and this is probably not going to do any better. And Jordan and I were talking about this a little bit before recording, actually, and it's such a tricky area when you talk about this kind of political stuff, because on the one hand, every country, of course, wants to make sure they're keeping the bad guys out, right? And they want to make sure they're keeping out the people who have ill intentions when they come to the country. And especially in the wake of 9/11, if you were old enough to remember that, I remember all this information coming out that, like, yeah, these guys, anybody who spent 5 minutes would have realized that these guys had bad intentions, and there were all kinds of red flags that didn't go off or nobody followed up on. But it's just, I don't know, man. I feel like this is, especially the DNA stuff. Like, the social media is already kind of, but now you're talking about, family members, including children, all their information, DNA, biometrics. I really have to wonder at what point is this going just a little bit too far? And I don't want to get too far off topic, but I've heard Snowden talked about one of the big problems they had at the NSA was an overwhelming amount of data and the inability to parse it. And I have to wonder if that's kind of a point they're going to hit too, where they're taking in so much data. It's like, cool, now that we've got 500 data points on every single person coming into the US, we can't get through all the noise to find the actual problem people because it's just too much data.
Mm.
I don't know if you have any thoughts on this story.
I mean, I think I would say people I've talked to, just like the general sentiment that I've had was, people are a little bit cautious about entering the United States for a large amount of reasons. And I think this sort of thing is not really helping things. I think people, once they learn, you've got to you've got to unprivate your social media accounts, let them search through everything, give DNA swabs, fingerprint scans, biometric scans. Like, this is sort of the stuff that, like, I think a lot of countries where, there's more repression of citizens, that's a lot of, people would say is, that's, you're infringing on people's freedoms. And, I think America, people assume that it's, a free country, but there's this sort of stuff where if you want to enter the country, you have to give DNA swabs, face scans, social media history. Like, this is not really looking like a country that cares about, like, the freedom of the people that want to visit. And I don't know, it's definitely kind of concerning. But the way I understand it, right, is you don't have to be like an American citizen to be protected by, the Constitution and all of those things, right? The laws apply to tourists as well, correct?
I would have to check with my aforementioned lawyer friend, but I actually don't. I think certain things do and certain things don't.
Okay, yeah. I think that's certainly something that I was thinking of. Yeah, it's a bit of a this is for the visa process. Is that correct? You need to provide this information for the visa process. It's not even to, like, enter the country.
I don't think so, because no, because it says the new disclosures would apply to the 42 countries whose nationals are currently permitted without a visa.
I see. So this is
Yeah,
basically applying to everyone then in that case, right?
I think so. Because yeah, I think the process to get a visa, I think, is even more strict.
Wow. And is this is just for tourism? Like, you have to give all this information for tourism.
Yeah, just to come visit. Which, I mean, obviously, I am an American citizen, so I haven't been on that side of things. But like, I went to Europe a couple months ago, and it was just for a couple, or not even a couple weeks. It was like 10 days. I didn't have to get a visa or anything. So like, I kind of have been a little bit on that other side of this fence where I get to, not in the turning over social media and stuff, but yeah, like, it's, I don't know. It's just, it's weird to think about if had I gone to Europe, and when I get to Amsterdam, to go through the port of entry, and they're like, okay, unlock your Facebook. And especially someone like me, how do I explain that? Like, okay, what's your Facebook? I don't have one. What about Instagram? I don't have one of those.
They're gonna
What's
think
your,
you're
like,
lying.
people already give me weird looks when I'm like, I don't have any of this stuff. But, and then, I don't know, if I get caught not telling them about my Mastodon account, that's probably not a good look. So yeah.
Yeah, I think if you've made any comments criticizing the US government or the US in general, that would probably, I don't know, that seems like that could be a reason to deny you entry into the country. And I don't know, just to like put a different perspective on this as well. I don't know if anyone's ever, people always talk about, China is quite strict on this sort of stuff, but even China doesn't require this sort of information to enter the country, right? Um, so this is kind of, I feel like this is almost like global precedent at this point. Like I actually have never heard of a country requiring this much information just to go there as a tourist, not even to live there, just as a tourist. So yeah, this is definitely kind of concerning. Um, and it's just, for me at least, it's just another reason why I would never go there. No offense to any Americans. I think you have an amazing country, but it's just, yeah, it's a tricky situation.
To the defense of the China critics, I think China still does it. They just don't tell you. You just show up there and then find out you have to turn around and go home because they saw your Twitter. I could be wrong, but yeah, I don't know. I don't. We were talking about this a little bit before earlier. I don't want to be too political, but I do. I was in the military, and I've never been an overly patriotic person, but I'm really worried about the direction that we're headed in America, and this kind of stuff is a big part of that. This, like you said, this is ridiculous for a democratic, open country, and we've already seen people turned away at the border. There was a guy, a French person, a scientist of some kind, who flew to the U.S. for a conference earlier this year. Flew into Houston, and they said that he had like anti-American extremist content. And to be fair, they never disclosed what it was. So I mean, maybe it was like really bad stuff, although I find it a little bit hard to believe. Maybe it was just I don't like that guy. There's unfortunately there's a lot of stories out there, and we're living in a very difficult time where the veracity of a lot of claims is up for debate. So it's really hard to parse through this stuff, but I think this is setting very dangerous precedents when you make these overly broad, like, hostile attitudes towards its citizen culture, government, or institutions. Like, I don't know. That's kind of one of the freedoms I enjoy as an American, is to criticize my government, which I've been doing regardless of party for the last several years. So I don't know. I'm probably getting a little too political, but yeah, it's just we're not heading in a good direction, and it's scary from a privacy perspective for sure.
Yeah, also just from a general like freedom perspective, this is kind of concerning. I think everyone can sort of, regardless of your political alignment, say that this is not really a great aspect in terms of people's privacy. This is kind of invasive. It's collecting too much information just to enter the country. I feel like that's a reasonable position to take on this, regardless of what you think about whether this is a good idea or not. Um, but yeah, I don't really have too much more to add on this unless there's something you could add from a more American perspective.
No. Yeah, I just not to give it a pass, but going back to what I said, I see the argument of trying to weed out the bad guys, but I just wonder about the efficacy of this. And the question that I've always asked in the past is like, what are we giving up in exchange for something? We want to keep the children safe, but if we're taking away all their rights, is it really a worthwhile trade-off? Like, how much are we improving their safety versus how much we're taking away? And I feel like that really applies here. How much are we weeding out the bad guys and keeping the country safe in exchange for violating so many people's privacy? That's very concerning to me.
Yeah.
All right. I believe our next story will take us to India.
Yes, so
Is
India
that
considers
yeah.
enforcing a GPS on mobile devices. So this is sort of a quick little story here. India's government is considering a proposal to force smartphone manufacturers to enable GPS tracking at all times. This is just a short write-up on the privacyguides.org/news category by Freer. So the proposal comes courtesy of the Cellular Operators Association of India, a non-governmental trade association representing Reliance. Okay, I'm not going to try. Just, you can see on the screen. Some of the biggest Indian telecom companies. the proposal is a response to the Modi administration's frustrations that they often don't get precise locations when making legal requests to telecom firms, since they rely on cellular tower triangulation, which isn't always very precise. So AGPS is Assisted Global Positioning System, is a form of GPS that combines the satellite-based GPS with some other technology like cellular network and nearby Wi-Fi access points to achieve a much more precise location than either technology could achieve alone. The proposal would see to it that smartphone users can't disable the technology. This would mean that the location services would always have to be enabled without an option to turn them off. Apple, Google, and Samsung all oppose the move on the grounds that AGPS network services is not deployed or supported for location surveillance, and that the move would be a regulatory overreach, according to a letter from the Indian Cellular and Electronics Association, a different non-governmental organization representing Apple and Google. India's government has scheduled to meet with the top smartphone manufacturers to discuss the matter, but the meeting was postponed for unknown reasons. At this point, no decision has been made. So I think one interesting thing we've seen with India is they sort of have been pretty ready to sort of implement these surveillance things. Like I know they've got quite a comprehensive digital ID system, and that's certainly a bit of an issue with a lot of surveillance things. But I think the ability to get even more precise location from this AGPS thing is I don't know, it just seems a bit, it's like you're treating every single person as a suspect at that point. Like every single person has got to be tracked, their location is to be recorded by the government. That seems like, I feel like that's like 1984, you know, like that's like kind of like dystopian, you know, but it seems that the Indian government doesn't appear to think so. It says here Apple planned to outright refuse the order, and the Indian government quickly backed down and reversed the requirement. So it was because the manufacturers would have to install a government app by default, and it wouldn't be able to be removed by users. Basically, that app would be able to provide the location tracking at all times. So yeah, it's a bit of an issue, right? Especially when there's these governments trying to strong arm like smartphone manufacturers into like implementing these tracking measures. I think it's quite a bit of a problem, especially when this is so wide-reaching in society. Like every single person is going to have their device location tracked at all times. It's problematic in a lot of ways. But yeah.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of thoughts on this that you didn't already state. It's India's going a little bit hard in the paint right now with trying to really force things on their citizens. And like you said, originally it was this app, this Sanchar Sathi, which I probably mispronounced that, and I apologize to all the Indian listeners, but they were like, oh, it's this cybersecurity app, and then they backed down from that and they were like, oh well, you know, everybody downloaded it, so it's cool. And then they were like, oh, but now encrypted messengers need to like link to a SIM, and that also, I believe, got repealed, at least informally got repealed. And it's, you know, now they're like, oh, but now this like assisted GPS tracking, and it's just, I don't know, it's really weird. And the fact that it's the fact that it keeps happening. The cynical part of me wants to make the joke. It's like, don't you know you're supposed to put a few months of space in between all these attempts? Like the fact that it just keeps happening like every other week and it's like something different every time. It's like, what is going on there? It's, you know, earlier I talked about giving politicians the benefit of the doubt, but I'm having a hard time doing it here for sure. So, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like we don't have to explain why this is a problem, right? Like having everyone's location monitored by the government at all times. I feel like most reasonable people would be against this, but apparently the Indian government thinks that this is completely reasonable. So I don't know, but I think it's I think if you live in India, you need to really make us think about this, because this is mass surveillance. Like, that is by the letter mass surveillance. So definitely, definitely, I'm not too familiar with Indian politics, so I'm not really sure what avenues you might have to fight against this. But I definitely do some research on that. I can't really provide any info on that, unfortunately.
Yeah, they do. I know they do elections because I know their elections last for like a month. Like it's a pretty intense process. So they definitely have elected officials. So I would imagine there is a way to contact them. I hope. All right. And that'll take us to our next story, which is um it this is a big deal. I'm a little bit surprised because when I first heard about this, I was like, "Oh no, this is going to be like the next just um never ending vulnerability that we keep hearing about." But so far, I feel like it's been a little bit quieter than I expected. Not to say it's not bad, it's just been quieter than I expected. So, anyways, there's a new vulnerability called React to Shell, and I do apologize that I'm kind of reading this story in real time. This was kind of a last minute story for me, but there's this new remote code execution that has exposed over 77,000 IP addresses and has breached over 30 organizations. So again, it is a big deal. I was just expecting to see it in my headlines a lot more. So this is an unauthenticated remote code execution vulnerability that can be exploited via a single HTTP request and affects all frameworks that implement React server components, which includes Next.js, which is very popular. So yeah, it Bleeping Computer likes to get really, really deep in the weeds on a lot of these kind of vulnerabilities. So I'm probably not going to read the whole article because they get very technical. But I do know that Next.js is a very big vulnerability, or not vulnerability, excuse me, a library, I believe. It's something that I know gets used quite a lot. So React is close. I'm sorry. Yeah, yeah, it's a very popular one. So React disclosed the vulnerability on December 3rd and explained that unsafe deserialization of client-controlled data inside React enables attackers to trigger remote code execution without authentication. So basically, for those who don't understand remote code execution, it's remote. You know, they don't have to have physical access to your device or anything like that, as long as they can get access to the server. I have seen a few of the projects that I follow have been pushing out updates that specifically in the patch notes say like this is to fix the React what is it called, React to Shell flaw. So I'm glad to see some people are responding to this. So um, on December 4th, a security researcher published a working proof of concept demonstrating the command execution against unpatched servers. And soon after, scanning for the flaw accelerated as attackers and researchers began. So, um, this is one of the reasons that responsible disclosure, and I'm not saying this person didn't responsibly disclose, I don't know the details on that, but this is one of the reasons that responsible disclosure is such a big deal in the security community, because once you go public with the details, especially like detail of how this works in a proof of concept,
Mm.
they like literally the next day I start seeing articles in my newsfeed about like all of a sudden scans have gone up and attackers are trying to find people who are using this outdated server software or whatever. We see that kind of stuff a lot. So yeah, the researchers determined that IP addresses were vulnerable using a detection technique where an HTTP request was sent to servers to exploit the flaw, and a specific response was checked to confirm whether the device was vulnerable. So again, they could do this automated scanning to see who was vulnerable. Gray Noise recorded 181 distinct IP addresses attempting to exploit the flaw over the past 24 hours at the time this article was written. Scans are primarily originating from the Netherlands, China, the US, Hong Kong, and a small number of other countries. So that's interesting. Netherlands. Did not expect to see them pop up on this. Palo
Mm.
Alto Networks reports that more than 30 organizations have already been compromised. Attackers exploiting the vulnerability to run commands, conduct reconnaissance, and attempt to steal configuration and credential files. And some of these compromises are linked to known state associated threat actors. So, yeah. Let's see here.
That looks
Let's see.
kind of yikes
Cloudflare
in
has
the.
rolled
Oh,
out.
sorry. I just
No, you're good.
I
Go
just
ahead.
noticed in the United States it was 24,000. That's like the highest out of every other country, and just thought that was interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, that surprises me too. I wonder if they've got to be using like VPNs or something, I think.
Mm.
So, yeah, it says here further down in the article, because I'm kind of skipping over some of the more technical details. But if you're a tech savvy person who wants those details, definitely check those out. Because again, Bleeping Computer usually digs deep into the step by step. They say that Cloudflare has already rolled out emergency detections and mitigations. However, it inadvertently caused an outage. So if some of the websites you used earlier this week kind of went down for a little bit, that could be why. CISA has added the CVE to their known exploited vulnerabilities catalog and is requiring federal agencies to patch by December 26th, which is a very generous timeline in my opinion, but maybe I'm wrong. Um, let's see here. Yeah. So we we see these kind of vulnerabilities happen from time to time. It's, if one organization uses a certain library or a certain framework in this case, then unfortunately everybody who uses it could be exposed. So thankfully, like I said, I haven't seen too many. What I've seen a lot in the past is one thing happens, and then every single week for 6 months, there's like six new companies are like, oh, we had a data breach because of this third party thing. I personally have not seen that yet, but also I guess this is still pretty early and could still end up happening. So,
Yeah.
yeah, hopefully, a lot of the projects you use are patching for listeners out there.
They definitely should be because I believe this vulnerability was rated like a maximum severity rating. Like this is like a severity 10 vulnerability, so like they 100% should be. And I would hope that everyone is rolling out fixes sooner rather than later, like not the 26th of December. That's kind of a long time. Um,
Yeah, that's like 3 weeks away. That's crazy.
yeah, especially for like a remote code execution vulnerability, that's quite a long time. And I think there are versions rolling out now that have got the that have it fixed. So I think all it requires is just to make sure you've updated. Um, so that might be more difficult in some organizations, or might be more easy in some organizations. So it kind of makes sense. Um, but yeah, this also affected like other things that like include or depend on the React server, basically. So I think the ones that are listed here is the React router, Waku, RSC, plugin RSC, RW, SDK, and Next.js. So I guess if there's anyone who's like a developer or anything like that, you'd probably know by now, unfortunately. But yeah, it's definitely an unfortunate vulnerability, and definitely hope that people are updating their backend stuff right away.
I just wanted to say I went and checked, followed several links, and yeah, that's a 10.0 vulnerability. That's crazy. I don't know that I've seen one of those before personally. I've seen a lot of like 9 point somethings, but wow. 10 is I think as high as the scale goes.
Yeah,
That's
definitely,
wild.
definitely a pretty bad one. Oh, we just
Yeah.
got another 5 Privacy Guides memberships gifted by Jonah. So if you got one of those, make sure to say thank you. Thanks, Jonah, for that.
Jonah's so generous.
10 gifted
I love it.
memberships. Oh my goodness.
I know. Yeah. All right. I think I think it's time to head over to the forum and look for questions unless you have anything else to add.
No, yeah, definitely. That's everything there. Let's move on over to the forum here. Was there any updates that you thought were very important to mention this week?
Oh, yes. So, we do have some bad news that we're going to cover real quick that has been getting a lot of discussion, which is that Techlore has shut down their forums, actually. So, we have a discussion going on about that in our forums that has been very active. But real quick, I do want to read Techlore's own statement about it over on his site. Basically, he said, "Oop, there's a pop up." Basically says Techlore has a new home. Everything is now consolidated at techlore.tech and powered by Ghost. But there's difficult news too. We're closing our public forum. So as of today, which is a couple days ago, the forum is read only. It will remain accessible until June 1st of 2026, so you can export your data and reference valuable threads. After that, all user data will be automatically deleted. Users can still DM each other to exchange contact information if they wish. He says this was a difficult decision we went back and forth on for months. The forum has been a space where many of you connected and shared knowledge. Losing that hurts, not just for the community, but for us too. He says, but the reality is we were a two-person team. We haven't been able to give the forum the attention it deserves. And forums require sustained focus, energy, and care. And that's energy we want to direct at our core mission. So, yeah. And then he goes on to talk about moving into focus on their other content. So, yeah, thanks to the Privacy Dad who went ahead and shared this on our forums, because that's definitely where I first heard about this. And then thanks also to JG who went ahead and posted the actual link to Techlore's statement. So, um, yeah, it's been a very polarizing thing among our own community. Um, I think nobody's really happy about it from what I've seen for sure, and it's very unfortunate, but it's, yeah, I don't know. I think I guess the reason it's been, especially unfortunate is a lot of people I don't know, there's a, how do I wanna word this? I've seen a lot of people really like the idea of diversity and just having more options in general, which is something I'm a big believer in too. And so I think that's a major reason that everybody's been really kind of bummed about this. But I don't know. And I know I don't know. I don't have a lot of thoughts other than what Henry said. It's two people over there at Techlore right now, and that's forums require a lot of work. We're really fortunate to have a really good team here of volunteer moderators that help keep an eye on things. And our forums are super, super active. I know it's not easy to keep up with a forum or any kind of community, really. So that's a lot for two people to manage. Did you have any thoughts on this story, on this development, Jordan?
No, it's just an unfortunate outcome, but yeah, I think there was definitely some interesting information there. I would definitely look at exporting your account's data. That's a thing you can do in Discourse. And I think yeah, it's interesting to see that they're taking a direction towards more digital rights activism, which is really exciting. So I think I'm excited to see where that leads. But I think that the forum will be sorely missed. I definitely was a fan of that forum and I was pretty active over there. So it is unfortunate it's going away, but as you can say, all things come to an end eventually. So that's unfortunate, but yeah, definitely looking, definitely very excited to see what future stuff their team is working on.
Agreed. Yeah. Yeah, Jonah says over here in the chat, end of an era. We really need more places to constructively discuss privacy advice, but we're coming at things stronger than ever at Privacy Guide. So hopefully we can pick up some slack. So, yeah, I mean, of course, if you were a Techlore forum user, we would love to have you over at the Privacy Guides forum. We now have the what did I talk about at the top? The experience level tags. So, if you feel like you're still pretty new to this stuff, you can go ahead and tag yourself with a beginner tag if you want to. And yeah, you're definitely welcome here. And um, I don't know. Yeah, they're talking about some other stuff too, because again, it's the diversity that people really appreciated. So people are talking about different Lemmy communities, and it's a good discussion to check out and see what else is out there. People mentioned a few specific project forums, but those are like graphene cubes. Those are dedicated to those projects specifically, and not always privacy in general. So yeah, but I'm with you. I'm excited to see what Techlore is going to be putting out in the future. They've been putting out some really good videos lately, so wishing them the best on that for sure.
Yeah, some really good stuff. Especially on I saw the video about the digital omnibus, and I thought that was great. So it's really good stuff to see coming out, and yeah, we're definitely also working on some activism stuff here as well,
Mhm.
which I think will be really exciting. But it's definitely definitely a change. I'll definitely miss it. But yeah, all the best to them in their future endeavors.
Yeah. I'm catching up on old content. He's got a lot of interviews with people that have been really interesting. So all right. I think that'll bring us into the questions. So we're going to start by taking questions from our forum, specifically from our paying members. And if you want to become a member, you can go to privacyguides.org, click the little red heart icon in the top right corner of the page, and you will be presented with options there. And then once we have checked the forum, we will go ahead and bounce over to the live chat where I know we have been getting some questions. So thank you guys who have been active. I actually, it doesn't look like there have been a whole lot of questions this week, but there have been a few posts I wanted to mention. One of them was JG said it would be really cool if Privacy Guides talking about the highlight story this week about the man who got arrested in Atlanta. He said it'd be really cool if we could get in touch with EFF to answer questions um, as far as legal stuff and issues. So it wasn't EFF per se, but I did reach out to a lawyer, and I hope that was helpful. You said this would help us better understand how to and how not to enter the country if you're an activist. So yeah, I know we didn't answer that specifically, but I did talk about how it's really a lot of gray area when it comes to cell phone searches at the border right now, and definitely need to just err on the side of caution, I think. And then JG also asked if Jordan could weigh in about the social media ban, which you did. So trying to see what other questions here. Feel free to chime in if I missed one, Jordan.
Yeah, just seeing a couple of speculations here about, was the activist that was arrested, were they using Graphene OS? We don't know. So
Yeah.
I mean, I hope they were. But yeah, we don't know. But it would be interesting to hear more details about this.
Yeah.
But kind of waiting on the media to pick it up, or like more information to get released basically at this point.
I wouldn't be surprised on that note if 404 does release, because I think that's where we originally picked up the story. And 404 is, in my opinion, does a really good job of keeping up with stories. Because one of the drawbacks of the news cycle is a lot of the time, once something falls out, people just move on. So I really appreciate organizations of any kind that do kind of like stick to a story and update whenever there are updates. So hopefully they will. But somebody asked a few questions about how the forum works specifically, which it looks like Jonah went in and answered those. Yeah, so not a lot of questions from the forum specifically this week, but and Jonah just gifted a whole new round of memberships. Oh no, that was Sod this all sent 5 Privacy Guides gift memberships. Hey, thank you for doing that. How nice of you, man. This is like Oprah. You get a membership. You get a membership. You get a membership. I love it. Thank you to all the members, the new members. Okay, so scrolling back up to the top here. This is kind of a difficult thing. Canna Bitter, you said, shouldn't the Supreme Court's job be to interpret the law and not the public opinion? That would be nice, but according to my lawyer friend, there is unfortunately politics that goes into this stuff sometimes. So um, I I hate to say that, and that's not me trying to cast any kind of aspersions one way or the other. Like that's always just unfortunately been part of the system here in the U.S. and I don't like it, but yeah. That's also why a lot of the time you will see a case that um, will go like it'll work its way up through the courts, and then right when it gets to the Supreme Court, the somebody involved in the case, usually the person pushing the case, the what do they call that? The plaintiff, I think. They'll drop the case because their fear is that if they take it up to the Supreme Court will rule in a way against them, and then it will become legal precedent across the US. So that's not exactly a one-to-one of what you're saying, but like the point is it's a lot of the time there is a little bit of political game theory that goes into our political system. And yeah, it's unfortunate, but um yeah. And also Saw this all says love the guitars in the background. Thank you. I appreciate it. Um there's a few I'm proud of. Let's see. You said you're not sure about disappearing messages for most people. Like as a recommendation, I don't know. I'm not super sentimental about old messages to be honest, but I recognize that not everyone shares that opinion. So
Especially because it's so easy at this point. Like, Signal, you can just swap a setting in the settings, and then every single message you send in the future is going to expire. I don't know. I just put it on 4 weeks. I'm not too sentimental about things, but I think it's an easy change to make, and you never know what you've sent in the past that you might not want to be existing forever on someone else's device, which is what would happen if you didn't have it. So definitely worth thinking about a bit more if you need that sort of protection, but I can completely understand if you are a little bit sentimental about your messages.
mhm. Somebody, Abdelhak Hakour? Apologies if I pronounced that wrong. You said, why isn't Session Messenger on the Privacy Guide's website? I believe the biggest reason, and we actually talked about this the other week as I believe a headline story, is the lack of perfect forward secrecy, which is basically, if you didn't know, it's when every so often the encryption keys rotate. So that way, if somehow if the encryption were to be cracked by like a government computer or something, they would only get access to a certain window of messages instead of your entire message history. However, we did announce last week that coming in 2026, Session will be adding PFS. So obviously, I cannot say anything for sure. We don't know the future. There may be other factors that I'm not aware of, but I wouldn't be surprised if there is at very least a discussion revisiting Session and whether or not we should add it. So if you have opinions on that, definitely join the forum and be part of that discussion when it comes up. So, um, there's comments about doom scrolling. I will address this one actually. You also asked if you care about privacy, why is your face on YouTube? I chose to make that decision just to help spread the message. And obviously, I could have gone like the route like Jordan is using the I don't know what Apple calls those, the emoji thing. um, but Jordan is using that, and like the hated one, for example, just does a voiceover. I could have gone that route, and honestly, if I were doing it today, I maybe would consider doing like the VTuber thing potentially. But at the time that I started doing YouTube videos, VTubers weren't really, at very least, they weren't a super popular thing like they are now. And I don't know. I felt like for me, it was worth giving up a little bit of that privacy to help spread that message. And I don't know. I it doesn't really bother me so much anymore. There's other steps that I take to try and protect my privacy. Like for I'm actually pretty open about this. Nate is not my real name. It's a stage name, if you will. And I take a lot of steps to compartmentalize my life and remove data broker data and stuff like that. So, privacy is a sliding scale. It's not like an all or nothing. Like, could I have better privacy by not showing my face? Absolutely. I could also have better privacy by just not having a YouTube account in general. So, it's kind of up to everybody to judge their own threat model and what's important to them. And I was willing to not to like try to make myself sound grand or anything, but I was willing to make that sacrifice personally to help spread that message. So, and then I think this is when they started handing out memberships. uh,
Yeah, I
yeah.
definitely think there's there's risks with showing your face, and I think especially for people that are of a certain group of people, it can be kind of problematic. So yeah, I personally prefer not to, because yeah, just not something I really want to deal with. But I think it's good to also make that sacrifice as well. But I think it's certainly up to the individual, like whatever you're comfortable with. I think is is important to to think about, and choose what's the best option for you. Nate looks like
Yeah.
Harry to me.
Wait, what I miss? Oh, Harry who?
Just because you said your name wasn't actually Nate, but yeah,
Oh, like Harry.
yeah.
Okay. I don't know if I have an opinion on that. Actually, I will say when I was younger, like middle school younger, I got this is going to be a hard thing for younger people to wrap their heads around, but once upon a time, Harry Potter was not cool, and I got bullied, picked on a lot for looking like Harry Potter. So, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I know nowadays that would get you cool points, but back then it was an insult. Somebody asked if we mentioned Noster. We didn't bring up Noster. I don't believe we recommend it on privacy guides either. If you think we should, again, head over to the forum, start a discussion. Do we still allow discussions on GitHub? I know that used to be a thing,
No.
but
Well, I mean, unless it's in an
no. Okay,
issue, but there's no GitHub discussions
gotcha,
anymore. No.
gotcha. Okay, then yeah, if you think we should, head over there. Um, And then, yeah, somebody else asked, what are the benefits of being a member of Privacy Guides? For now, I think the biggest thing is probably the early access to videos by, I think it's like, man, how long was the, oh no, it's still member only. The threat modeling video is still member only. But yeah, now we've got the smartphone course as well. And, yeah, so early access to videos, but I do know we're always having discussions and taking suggestions on additional perks that we can offer to members. So yeah,
Definitely worth
and
checking out the videos that are like sitting there because they're not quite done yet. Like we want to release the entire course to the public in one go. We don't want to just like have it sitting there and not be complete. So that
Mhm.
is why it's sitting as members only for the foreseeable future. We're hoping to have the stuff published by the end of the year, so that'll be public then. But it is kind of important to make sure we get all of the course done. But it is kind of a lot of work to get that all completed, especially because there's a lot of information in the course. But yeah, it's looking pretty good so far. But there should be a regular upload soon. We're just been working a little bit more on the courses, so yeah.
Yeah, which again, I really want to thank you for that because I feel like, in my personal opinion, as somebody who has edited all my own videos start to finish over at the New Oil, like I feel like the most involved part is the part that you're doing. Like just a quick peek behind the curtain. What's been happening so far with the videos I'm on is I film them. I do the initial rough cut just to kind of cut out all the dead space and the mistakes and then I send it over to Jordan and Jordan does all the color correction and adds all the really cool animations and graphics and stuff that I could never figure out how to do in a million years. And so I feel like Jordan's doing the majority of the work by far. And I think they're crushing it too. And I really appreciate all the hard work they do. So,
Yeah, no, I think it's
all
definitely
right.
it's going to be really great once people get to see because I feel like nothing's public yet, but I think once everyone gets to see the smartphone security course, I think they're going to be very impressed because yeah, I do think you did a great job of explaining stuff and just to be clear, it was Nate who wrote that. So yeah, that's going to be coming soon. Definitely look out for it. But just one small thing is YouTube members are different to our forum members. You only get access to the early videos on YouTube if you're a YouTube member. So it's kind of an unfortunate thing, but just another thing to cover here. And also,
Yes.
Nate,
Thank you.
can you either neither confirm nor deny the Harry allegations?
You know, I think my thing lately is I'm just going to deny everything. And yeah. Yeah, I was in in an online chat room one time a while back where somebody was like, "Hey, aren't you Nate?" And I was like, "I don't know who you're talking about." So, I think that's just going to be my thing now.
Oh yeah, I guess
Yeah.
people could recognize you, I suppose. That is something to think about. Hello there, Dev Josh. Hello. Welcome.
Yeah. All right. Well, that is all the updates from this week in privacy. They will be shared here on the blog every single week. So stay subscribed with your favorite RSS reader if you want to stay tuned. Um, there are, I believe I'm missing some parts to this sign off. Oh no. Um, well, I know I do want to remind you guys that, like I said at the top, Privacy Guides is a nonprofit which researches and shares privacy related information. And my cat is making a last minute cameo yet again. And we facilitate a community on our forum and on Matrix where people can ask questions and get advice about staying private online and preserving their digital rights. If you would like to support our mission, you can go to privacyguides.org, and there's a little heart in the corner, the top right of the website. You can click on that and you could become a member, or you can make a one-time donation. And all that information is available there. So thank you guys for watching. Again, updates will be in the blog, so subscribe with your RSS reader. If you prefer audio, we do have a podcast style recording of updates, which you can go find on our website as well, or I believe will also be in the description here. There's a newsletter that contains a summary of all these stories if you want access to that as well. So thank you guys for watching. Jordan, did I miss anything?
No, I'm not sure why that change wasn't in the document, but yes, we will be good next week. Don't worry. But yeah, thanks so much for watching, everybody.
Just making sure I covered it all.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we will see you same time next week with the latest news from next week.
Bye-bye.